Welcome to Democratic Television, a program of the Santa Clara County Democratic Party that brings insights, perspectives, and attitudes of our always thoughtful Democratic guests. Today we're joined by Andrae Macapiniac, a very wonderful young man, an activist, and a legislative staffer. Let's get to know him. Andrae, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me, Steve.
Yeah, anytime. But before we get into all the things that you're involved with and your projects and your bucket list and all that, where are you from? Where'd you grow up? Tell me a little bit about you.
Well, sure. Most people who have my cell phone number knows that it starts with a 707 area code. That's because I was born and raised in the North Bay, lived in Vallejo, graduated high school in Benicia. I then went to San Jose State in 2005,
Oh,
majored in political science, and since then I've kind of made the South Bay my home. It's really where I got really involved in politics, but when I was in Benicia, I founded the Benicia High School Young Democrats.
oh,
We campaigned for then Senator Kerry for president. Found out what heartbreak on election night meant. But 4 years later, I think we redeemed ourselves. We were with the San Jose State Democrats, and we campaigned for Barack Obama. And it really was an exciting time because Michelle Obama herself even came on campus. John Kerry came to the Mexican Heritage Plaza campaigning for Barack Obama before Super Tuesday. And really, there was a genuine excitement and not a heartbreaking election night.
well, thank God, because you need something to offset that sad defeat.
It was well worth it.
Yeah, but it's so sweet that you haven't perhaps had many sad defeats.
Well, we've had some here and there, but I think winning the White House for our party is always well worth it.
Well, and that's something that'll be coming up in 2016.
Absolutely, and we're well prepared for it.
So speaking of Benicia, the one of the capitals of the state of California, but that goes back before our time.
That's right. It's actually still there.
Oh,
Yeah, we visited there not too long ago. It's, I think, the only other state capital besides the current state capital that's still up.
so let me ask you this. I'm always interested. When you grew up, did you have any influences that might have presaged your interest in politics or?
I think my Christian faith was my primary driver in getting me to democratic politics, and that the aspect of social justice, caring for the poor, helping people, be, uh, really helping people who can't help themselves, and being the voice of the voiceless, drove me to the Democratic Party. I think it was around 2000 when I saw what happened in Florida
Mm.
and the election being stolen, and I saw that injustice. It was really then that I wanted to start getting involved in politics. And for the record, I was just 13 years old.
I was doing the math while you were talking, and I had you
Yeah.
pegged it as a youngin.
Yeah, I think at that time I filled out my voter registration card like 5 years prior to when I could actually vote.
Wow,
Yeah, I was that excited about
wow,
it.
excellent. Um, any others? Was your family politically active or politically not active or?
I have a family that of two immigrant parents. They came from the Philippines, and they left at a time when there was martial law, when there was really an authoritarian dictatorship. While there were technically elections, there was
Mm.
really a gun pointed at people's heads while they turned in their ballots. So when they came to this country, and I was with them when they cast their first ballot,
Oh,
which was for Al Gore, coincidentally.
oh,
It was really exciting. So they kind of instilled in me this idea that we live in a country where we're blessed to be able to participate freely, to worship freely, to speak our minds freely, and so they've kind of been an inspiration for me as well.
it sounds like a great message to carry forward as we try to get more young folks and, frankly, more eligible voters to vote. It's a real frustration that we don't see more of that.
Yeah, absolutely, and especially with the new report coming out that the Asian vote and the Latino vote have been um, periodically lower than they should be, considering they're the two fastest growing demographics in the state and in the country.
Which is really exciting news. as long as we can energize people. And I like to see people get energized for all the right reasons and not for, I got to do everything I can to stop someone like the Republican, at this point, front runner, Donald the hairpiece Trump.
Right. And I think there is that kind of energy. It's untapped, but it's there. You have immigrant parents who really value education. They value their kids growing up on safe streets. And those are issues that really are on the ballot every year. They just have to be more educated about it. And I think it's our job as a party to reach out to them.
I like that. So, did you have any cool professors at San Jose State University that kind of kicked you into high gear?
I sure did. I was a political science major, and I had classes with many of the legends of San Jose State, and talking about Larry Gersten, Terry Christensen, um, Professor Brent. But really, I think somebody who I considered my mentor in college and politics actually didn't teach at San Jose State.
Mm.
Because just to step back a little, I was an intern with the California Faculty Association. They're
Oh,
the Union of California State University Professors.
oh,
And so the statewide vice president at the time was Professor Kim Jaron at Cal State East Bay.
oh.
And so he kind of taught me grassroots campaigns. He taught me a lot about API politics, and we still keep in contact to this day. And he's still the vice president of statewide California Faculty Association.
Gee
So,
whiz.
yeah,
That's a long tenure.
absolutely.
So, you graduated, I'm sure with distinction, but we don't need to get into that.
You don't need to get into
Nah,
that. No.
what the heck? What is distinction anyway?
It's all subjective.
What was your first job, and what'd you do?
Yeah, so I mentioned I interned with the California Faculty Association, and it was fortunate enough to be a paid internship.
Oh,
And so my job was to help organize students, organize them around the issue of budget cuts,
mm,
which at the time really was a huge issue. Arnold Schwarzenegger was the governor, and we just experienced the worst kind of cuts in the California State University. So there was a lot of anger
mm,
among the students, and so
yeah.
which actually translated to a lot of organizing and a lot of actions, a lot of protests. And so one of the bills that we were advocating for was a oil extraction tax
Mm,
to give funding for higher education. And the assembly member who authored that was Alberto Tarico.
mm.
And so we worked with him a lot. When I graduated, he just so happened to have an opening in his office.
Oh,
And so he asked me to come on board. I did, and I worked in his district office for his final term, so for 1 year. And after that, I worked for and still work for his successor, Bob Wieckowski.
wow. So you really haven't had a lot of different hats to wear out there in the world of work.
Yeah, not many. I mean, besides working at a Barnes and Noble and a Cold Stone, it's been politics after that from here on out.
Wow. Okay. Um, so one of the things that I know political jobs, although working in a legislative office isn't exactly a political job, you're working in that world, but what's the difference between sort of being a political person and working for a legislator in our capital?
Well, frankly put it, working as a political operative, your job is to get people elected. And being in a legislative office, it's doing the work of the people of, in this case, of the 10th Senate District and for the people of California. And so, my job is to build relationships with organizations in the community, make sure that their voices are heard and that their senator knows what they're up to and that they know what their senator is up to and what he's working on in Sacramento.
And how do you gather that intelligence, that information? What processes do you have?
Well, frankly, it's all about going out there, just finding out who the leaders are in the community, contacting them, going to neighborhood association meetings, going to organizational meetings, going to the dinners that they may have, and just letting them know who you are. And letting them know that the senator represents them.
Are you implying that it's not a 8 to 5 job,
Uh,
Monday through Friday?
I am definitely implying that it is a 7 to midnight job on most days.
Mm. And that's because that's when people get together, not necessarily workplace kinds of things, but neighborhoods, community organizations, people get together, voice their concerns when they can.
Absolutely. Like when going to city council meetings, it's really after 5 o'clock where you have most people out there to voice their opinions.
And so one of your jobs is to hear what people say and to communicate that to your boss, Senator Wieckowski.
Yes.
Does he have a way of asking his staff to give that kind of input?
Yeah, absolutely. He meets with us when he's in session. He comes back on the weekends, meets with us as a staff, and we just kind of go over who we met with in the week and how we can reply to them and how we can meet their needs.
Oh, that sounds interesting.
Yeah,
We're going to take a break right now. When we come back, a little bit more in the life of a staffer, and we're going to find out as a mentor.
you got it.
Be right back.
Hello, my name is Cindy Chavez, and I have been active in the Democratic Party for many years. And the thing I would say to all of you who are watching this is sometimes the problems seem bigger than we can handle. But if you get involved, we can make great change. If you'd like to get involved with the Democratic Party, call 408-445-9500.
Welcome back to Democratic Television. I'm having a great discussion with Andrea, who does a lot of interesting stuff within the legislative process in Sacramento, but you are out of the district office for Senator Bob Wieckowski.
That's correct. I work out of our office in Fremont. One other things that I do in the office is I run our intern program,
Oh,
which is pretty popular, pretty successful, especially during the summer. Most legislative offices have about 5, maybe 6 interns
mm,
during the summer. Our office has about 15 to 20.
gee whiz.
Yeah, that's what everybody says when
You
they
don't have
hear
to
that.
feed them, do you?
We give them cookies,
Oh,
and they should be thankful.
yeah.
So, so a lot of these are high school students
Mm.
looking for I'm sorry, for service credit, and
Oh,
we have
okay.
college students also looking to gain more experience as they head into the workforce. A lot of the students, actually, surprisingly, are not interested in political science
Mm.
when they become interns. But after the internship, a lot of them gain so much more interest in politics and the legislative process and how our government works.
I'm always pleased when I hear young people understanding the connection to the political world and to their world or their family's world. What do you think helps make them get that?
I think knowing that to make change is tangible. A lot of them come to our office saying that even though they have a lot of interest in politics and government, their peers not so
Mm.
much. And so there's a lot of apathy with the millennial generation. But for a lot of folks, especially when they have, and what we give them in this internship is a hands on experience of how government works, not only how bills become law, because everybody can watch Schoolhouse Rock and the Bill song to know how that works, but what I have them do is also find an issue that they are passionate about, find an injustice,
Mm.
and kind of sketch out a way how to solve that injustice, a strategy, I should say, and that being organizing their peers to write a petition and mail it to their local elected officials. And more importantly, to actually vote. A lot of them, like I mentioned, are college students, but a lot of them are 17-year-olds
Mm.
that are going to be 18 before the next
Mm.
election. So a lot of projects we give them, we just say, well, how do we increase not only young people voting, but as I mentioned earlier, how do we increase involvement by new immigrants
Mm.
to the United States, and a lot of it is their parents.
Mm.
You know, and a lot of our interns their parents come from countries in which democracy is almost non-existent or is authoritarian. And so it's really refreshing to see a group of young kids who actually know what's going on in the world. They know what it means to be a global citizen, and they know what it means to be a good American citizen who's active in the political process.
Well, that sounds really exciting, but how do you supervise 20 young people? I assume your workload in other areas isn't diminished much.
Not so much. A lot of the work that we do in the office, outreaching to constituents, having a database of elected officials and community leaders, they actually help out in keeping that
Hmm.
data and drafting correspondence to reach out to those leaders. So when I say, we do have a hands-on approach to our internship, they literally, help us out as staff, and they feel like they're actually making a difference in the office. And more importantly, they know that Senator Wieckowski himself knows the good work that they do. And I think that's incentive enough for them to keep on going on, enjoying the internship, and most importantly, when they do go out to the job world, have those skills to become a good worker.
Well, that's very healthy. And I know Senator Wieckowski's been on our show. He's fairly driven. He has an agenda, a people's agenda, but describe what in his vision is exciting to you.
Well, like I mentioned before, a lot of the reason why I get involved in politics is because I care so much about the poor. I care so much about people who are underserved. And as a bankruptcy attorney, Bob, has authored bills that would help people going through bankruptcy, helping them keep more of their money, preventing creditors from cheating them out on money that they so well deservedly earned. And going through bankruptcy is humiliating enough for a lot of folks, and just easing that pain a little bit, I think, um, is something that Bob has been fighting for a long time when he is in the Assembly and the Senate. So I think those two principles kind of is why he's a good boss for
Hmm,
me.
that sounds really good. Let me ask you a little bit more about your activities
Mhm.
because, in addition to all the interns you're supervising and constituent work, you're active in the local Democratic Party and you've been active in some formative clubs.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been very active and was once president of the Silicon Valley Young Democrats, and I'm currently vice president of the programs for the Silicon Valley Asian Pacific American Democratic Club. And there's in both clubs you see really a younger generation of folks coming out wanting to get more active, and I think that's very important because that helps build a pipeline. It's kind of what my intention was for the internship program at Senator Wieckowski's office, to build a pipeline of folks who once, our leaders now are, once they're aging off, for lack of a better
Hmm.
term, but we do have a new group of leaders who are willing to stand up and take charge. And I think with the internship, you have a lot of good folks who we'll see in the future running for office. But in the clubs that I'm involved with, we're not only the future, but we're with the now. You see a lot of folks who have stepped up already, who got elected into
Mm.
local office and state office too, and you'll see more of that in the coming years.
Well, tell me a little bit more about young Dems. By definition, it sounds like you have to be young,
Yeah, I mean,
however that's defined.
right. I mean, I think with the party charter, a young Dem is younger than 35 years old.
Mm.
Although, that doesn't mean that people can't be young at heart.
Well, hopefully we all are.
But there's, especially in 2008, like I mentioned, you had a increase in voter participation from young folks, from people 18 to 35. For instance, in the Iowa caucus in 2008, it went up 400%
Wow.
from 2004. There was that much excitement. You had Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, and other folks too. That just there was just so much excitement, excitement for change. And so, we hope to capture that excitement and magic in the years to come. And really, how you get young people involved is not by talking at them, but talking to them, talking about issues that matter to them. Income inequality is huge with people in my generation because we're going to be paying the national debt for years to come. And obviously, we care about social issues, marriage equality, um, access to reproductive freedom. And so it's the Democratic Party, I think, that really speaks to my generation. And we just have to keep up the good work at talking to young folks, not at them.
And there's a difference, perhaps, between college Dems and young Dems in that you could be a college Dem and a young Dem, but you may have graduated beyond being a college Dem. So you have people that are in the world of work, people that are young professionals in private sector, public sector.
Yeah, absolutely. When I was going to San Jose State, I got involved with the Young Dems in addition to the San Jose State Dems because I was graduating. So,
Mm,
being a member of the Young Dems is a good way to network with folks who, like you mentioned, are in nonprofits, in the private sector, in government, or even working in campaigns
mm.
to get to know these folks so that when there's an opportunity that you can prove yourself and the connections on people who to talk to when you need to make that transition.
So I understand the local party has a number of sort of ethnic clubs, and you
Hmm.
mentioned the Asian Pacific American Democratic Club. What are the issues of that club?
Yeah, so a big issue is education. I think education is the number one tool to combat a lot of ills in our society, inequality, poverty, and so our club is some of our members are educators,
Hmm.
and so that is an issue. Another issue is just getting uh, voter turnout higher, getting participation higher. A lot of folks in the API community, um, one, there's low voter turnout, and two, um, participation isn't as high. And I think it's because outreach hasn't been there.
Mm.
I think the Democratic Party has done a good job in a lot of communities getting out the minority vote, but I think we could do a much better job. We've seen some ethnic groups actually registering as declined estates or
Mm.
even Republican,
Mm.
but I really don't see those parties, or that party, I should say, speaking to a majority of API issues.
I think you raise a really critical point and something I know Dems want to see more of, which is people stepping up and saying, my vote matters.
Hmm.
Again, not to pick on the Republican candidates, but it seems to me a lot of negativity is coming up about people's involvement. I would hope that would have people feel challenged and say, how dare you tell me what I should do or shouldn't do or where I should be? Um, is that something that you think young Dems and the Asian Dems and hopefully Latino Dems will be working on as we get forward to closer to 16?
I hope so. I'll tell you, that's another issue that is important to the API community is immigration reform because it is an issue that affects many families, not only in our state, but here in Santa Clara County. Um, and I think with what you're hearing from the right wing, and I shouldn't say now because you've always heard this from the right wing, is scapegoating. And that's not something we're going to tolerate. And we're going to show not only the Republican Party, but voters that immigrants are not a bane on society, but are a blessing. You have folks who work hard, pay their taxes, want their kids to live in safe neighborhoods, and that's all they want. And for them to be called these disgusting things by candidates is not only distasteful, but it's un American. And as the Democratic Party, you darn right we're going to step up
So I hear a little passion in you,
a little bit.
and that maybe is why you're so darn busy doing, your work and inspiring and being a mentor to young people and just looking for other opportunities to get out the word.
Absolutely. And if there's one thing that I've taught a lot of the interns is just to respect each other.
Mm.
And unfortunately, in American political discourse, we're lacking that. You have, if I mean, you see some talking heads on conservative radio or Fox News, and there's no discourse, there's no debate. It's just shouting and shouting down at people. And we can do a lot better than that.
And I feel like that's deliberate. I think people see that, they get turned off, and then they generalize and say, see, politics is no good. And I believe it's deliberate, and we can't let that happen.
Absolutely not. And yeah, unfortunately, it is deliberate and it is working. We've seen a undescribable wave of enthusiasm from the base of the conservative base of the Tea Party, and a lot of times their turnout in elections are much higher. We gotta stop that, and by doing that is just by getting more engaged.
And that leads me to my last question, perhaps,
Yeah.
in our last 30 seconds. If someone wants to get hold of you or communicate or maybe see if you will take them as an intern, do you have an email address or some way to?
Yeah, people who are watching this right now can feel free to contact me at my email address, which is mac.andre@yahoo.com.
So you're keeping it simple.
Very simple. As you notice, I didn't even use my full last name.
That's probably
How do you pronounce it?
helpful. I would just say we're out of time. Otherwise, I would pronounce
All
it.
right.
Thank you very much for being on our show.
You're welcome, Steve.
Thanks for watching Democratic Television. Give us a call at 408-445-9500 or visit our website, www.sccdp.org. Help make a difference. Thank you.